lay language. So for example, occlusion. I guarantee you 99% of your patients don't know what occlusion is. So when you throw terms around that patients don't understand, you cannot possibly raise their dental IQ if you do so. And that is, again, raising dental IQ increases the patient's value of the dentistry. So if you're going to use a word like occlusion, you need to define it, or better yet, just keep it simple. So don't use those words. Say contact between the teeth. If you want to use occlusion, fine, but define it, show it, so that when you then use the word, they know what the patient knows what it means. But you're better off using lay terms. The other thing that you can do is you can actually break up words to make them understandable. So for example, a word like periodontics. Let's take a look at that. Well, what is perio? You have perio, you have dontics. Perio plus otis. Perio equals around, like a periscope, all around. And then otis equals tooth. So we're talking about what goes around the tooth. But again, if you use the word periodontics, you just assume the patient knows what that means, or you need periodontal work. Again, ask your patients. They won't know what it means. I mean, they may give you some kind of vague answer, but even that, I doubt it. And I mean, you don't want to make your patients look stupid, so I won't necessarily say ask. But if you can get patients to actually understand what you're talking about, that will raise their dental IQ, and that will cause them to place more value on your treatment. It is probably a formula. So avoid lay terms if you're going to use, or avoid dental terms if you're going to use lay terms. Get them defined, and then for some words like something like periodontics, going backwards, you can actually make them more understandable by breaking them up. There you go. All right. Moving on to the next one here. I just got to catch the slideshow back up. All right. Another really great way to educate patients to raise their dental IQ so they place more value on the treatment is the use of analogies. An analogy is basically a very quick way to educate somebody, because what you're doing is you're taking something they're unfamiliar with and comparing it to something they are familiar with. Let me give you some examples here. Let's say occlusion, getting back to occlusion. And I pulled these right off of some websites. These are actual examples from dentists. So here's a way to explain occlusion using an analogy. You have 4 worn out tires, and you place 3 of them with new ones. What will happen? The 3 new tires will wear out much quicker than they would if you had replaced all 4 of them. Fairly simple way to explain occlusion and the importance of fixing it. How about filling versus crown? Doing a fill-in is like using spackle when you really need a piece of drywall. Here's another one, Prophy versus SRP. The cleaning is like washing your car. Scaling and root planing are like doing body work. If your car needs body work, just taking it to the car wash is not going to fix the problem. So you can, again, quickly educate a patient using an analogy very quickly, because you're comparing it to something they already know. Very, very quick, efficient, effective way to educate patients. There's a book, by the way, which I have nothing to do with. I have no vested interest whatsoever. It's on Kindle. It's called Dental Analogies. I think you can get a Kindle edition. Actually, yeah, it says it right there. So either way, you can get the hardcover or the Kindle edition. Analogies are a beautiful thing. And you probably all use them to some degree. It's just you might need to be more disciplined about using them. Or, if you're using a dental term, that's another way you can educate a patient quickly on what a dental term means. All right, the other thing is to show patients. If you do not show patients, you will lose interest. But in showing patients, and I'm going to go different ways you can do that, all of which I'm sure you're familiar with, you got to make sure you're not using too much dental terminology, or define the terminology as you go along. So, of course, intraoral camera, models, x-rays, and software such as DDS-GP. These are all ways to show, educate effectively, efficiently, and also, again, the patient won't lose interest. Now, here's one that's a little harder maybe to get your wits wrapped around, but you want to avoid yes or no type questions. So what do I mean by that? Do you understand? That's a yes or no question. And it's kind of like, if you've ever been in a seminar and the seminarist asks you to wait, does anybody have a question? It's fairly common that a lot of people avoid asking a question because they don't want to ask a stupid question, course, there are no stupid questions, as they say, but the point is, if you say, do you understand, the patient A wants to get the hell out of there, excuse me, so they're probably going to go, yeah, I understand, doc, whatever. You don't know if they may understand, but you don't know if they understand, and half the time they don't, if not more. So you want to avoid questions that can be easily answered yes or no. You want to ask questions that make sure that you can tell the patient understands the information. So, for example, what do you think will happen if you don't do anything about it, whatever it is you're talking about? They can't answer that yes or no. They have to answer it in such a way that either shows they don't understand what you went over, or they do, and then they can tell you. And if they don't, hopefully they'll tell you, they'll say, well, can you review that? I'm not sure. Can you review that information for me again? Or you'll be able to tell, which means you need to back up and go back over it so that they can answer the question.